The Alash movement was one of the most important political and intellectual movements in early 20th century Kazakh history. Our research question is, was Alash mainly a project of national modernization for the broader Kazakh society, or was it only a political initiative of a limited circle of intellectuals acting under colonial conditions? Our argument is that Alash was an elite-led national modernization project. It was initiated by a small group of educated Kazakh intellectuals, but its goals were directed toward the broader transformation of Kazakh society.
Alash emerged in the context of late Russian Empire when Kazakh society faced administrative control, land pressure, limited political representation, and debates about modernization. These colonial conditions shaped both the goals and the limitations of the movement. Therefore, Alash should not be studied only as a political party. It should be understood as a response to the larger problem of how Kazakh society could preserve its identity and modernize under imperial rule.
Our first statement is that Alash was politically initiated by a limited circle of educated Kazakh intellectuals. Its leaders included figures such as Alixan Bukikhanov, Ahmet Baytarsunov, and Mirjaqip Dulatov. They were journalists, teachers, writers, and political activists. Primary sources such as Kazakh newspapers show that these intellectuals actively discussed land, education, legal reform, and political representation. This supports the idea that Alash was organized by an educated elite. However, this doesn't mean that Alash was only a private project of intellectuals. In colonial conditions, this group became the political voice of wider national concerns.
The second statement is that the Alash program addressed the needs of broader Kazakh society. The 1970 program of the Alash party included questions of autonomy, civil rights, education, courts, religion, taxation, and land. These issues were not narrow interests of a small political group. Land affected ordinary Kazakh communities. Education affected future generations. Legal reform and self-government affected the structure of society. Also, this evidence showed that Alash was a modernization project. It tried to connect national identity with modern institutions, schools, law, political representation, and local self-government.
Our third statement is that colonial conditions explain why Alash was both ambitious and limited. On one hand, the movement aimed to modernize society and defend Kazakh interests. On the other hand, its social base was limited because political participation under imperial and revolutionary conditions was restricted. Museum materials and historical maps can help us to understand this context visually. They show that Kazakh steppe was not an isolated space, but part of a larger imperial system. In this system, questions of land, administration, and national identity become politically urgent. Therefore, Alash was not a massive democratic movement in the modern sense, but it was also not just an elite club. It was an attempt by intellectuals to formulate a national future under colonial pressure.
To conclude, Alash was both a political initiative of intellectuals and a project of national modernization. However, its historical significance lies in the fact that this intellectual initiative was directed toward the broader Kazakh society. Alash tried to answer the key questions of its time. How could Kazakh society become modern while preserving its national identity and the political agency? Therefore, the best interpretation is that Alash was an elite-led modernization project created under colonial conditions, but aimed at the national future of Kazakh society.